All right. So we're talking today about leverage.
That's right.
Man, here's the thing. So many times whenever you were to say, like, we're planning ahead and looking at the next 12 months, and when somebody says, "Hey, I want to double my production or I want to do even more," oftentimes, Frank, what I hear people say is, "Well, how am I going to do more? Because more means more time." How do we fix that, man?
You got to have there's this little thing that, that's called leverage, Steve. And
Yeah.
we have to understand how to use that, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways that you can apply
Mm.
leverage, right? Yeah, the big like you said, the big thing is man, I'd like to do more than 4 loans a month, but man, I think I'd jump off a bridge. I don't know that I
Yeah.
have enough time. I just, that's going to result in, if I'm going to go from 4 to 8, that's going to result in I got to do twice the hours,
Yeah.
and it's simply not the case, right? We
Yeah.
have to understand we can leverage things, right? And what does leverage mean?
Mm.
It means we can use something to generate more output, right? We
Right.
can generate more output. And there's a lot of ways that we can look at that. And we can, kind of, between the two of us right now, I'm sure we could rattle off a handful of things. I
Yeah.
mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, I'll give you perfect example. Perfect example. I have I have a virtual assistant that makes calls for me, right? And this virtual assistant, Steve, equipped with a phone burner account. I am not even lying to you right now. This virtual assistant makes, in 2 hours a day, by the way, cost me under $300 a month. Okay. Under
Yeah.
$300 a month. 2 hours a day. She calls about 100 people a day.
There
A
you go.
hundred.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've got her set up with a script, which is, if they're not interested right now, but they'd like an email, you always get the send me something, right?
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
it to where she can literally push a button and it sends that email, right? So in 100 calls, like for example, yesterday, she did 96 calls. She had, I think she had 38 talk tos, something
Wow.
like that.
Yeah.
38 talk tos, so not about right, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that
Yep.
range. 38 talk tos. She sent 8 emails,
Yep.
okay, and she set 2 appointments for me.
That's great. That's it,
That's
man.
leverage, my friend.
That's leverage. Yep.
Okay, so and that leverage cost me. Okay, now so sometimes leverage comes at a cost,
Mm-hmm.
right? It comes at a cost, but think about that cost, bro.
Yeah. Very
Her
minimal.
actual total cost to me is $280 a month,
Yeah. The very
and she,
minimal.
brother, she does this every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you call
five
automated.
days a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one way. I'm sure you can come up with other things for leverage. But here's the thing: I can increase my volume, but I didn't have to increase my time. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
have I paid some money, not much, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got somebody doing, and well scripted. You have to sometimes with virtual assistants, Steve, you got to go through a couple here and there. You
Right.
got to find the ones that do well. There's a little bit of work there, a little bit of the, with when it comes to leverage too, I would say this. When it comes to leverage, you're there is some work you do have to put into it because you have to evaluate what works and what doesn't when it comes to leverage.
That's
Like,
right.
perfect
Yeah.
example. What if we're doing a Facebook ad, which we're not the biggest fans of, but let's say you're doing that, right? Well, you can A/B test those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could have so you might have to put a little bit of time into A/B testing and A/B testing again but eventually you'll find the sweet spot,
Right.
right? So now you've got that leverage working for you. Just like if I'm going through VAs, I might have to go through 2 or 3 VAs to find the right one. But when I
Yeah.
find the right one, now I've got that leverage working for me. So, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, those are just a couple of thoughts from my
Yeah,
perspective.
well, when I think about leverage too, I think about there's a couple of things you can leverage. Well, first off, where I always start at is where are we going? There's no reason to leverage if we're not doing anything more
Mm.
than what we're currently doing. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we got to have a vision for where we're going. So, we're talking about the next 12 months. Do you want to stay doing the same? Or what would it feel like to double your current production? And when you say double, most people immediately say, well, how?
Right.
And how is a disempowering question. It's really, here's the better question. There's really a couple. One would be, what would I need to do differently?
Mm.
Funding. Like, let's say I was talking to somebody yesterday and they're funding 10 transactions. And it's like, what would you need to do differently to be funding 20?
That's a
And just the
way better way to
list.
look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like not how is disempowering because if you knew how to do it, you'd currently be funding 20 transactions.
Mm.
So what you got to say is what would I be doing different at 20 transactions? So when you know where you're going, it creates an anticipation of looking for the solution of, hey, at 20 units a month, I may not be going to networking events
Mm,
every, 3 networking events a week. So what would I leverage? I would leverage the phone over face to face.
mm,
What's something else I'd leverage? What I'm doing in my calendar, my routine. Somebody who's closing 20 transactions a month versus 10, Frank, they're probably not going to every closing. So what are we doing? We're leveraging maybe a text, a phone call, a different way to touch the client with the same experience where you don't have to show up to the closing.
mm.
So leverage is in time, leverage is in calendar, leverage is in people,
Mm-hmm.
leverage is in resource, leverage is in using the right CRM and the technology. Hey, I'll give you an example. If somebody who's making 20 outbound calls a day, dialing it on their phone, leverage would be, let's use the AI CRM that has
Right.
an auto dialer.
Yeah.
So what would take me an hour to do, I can do in 15 minutes now because I've got an auto dialer that drops ringless voicemails and it drops all of the follow-up behind it. That's leverage. But you got to know where you're going. And the second thing you got to ask is, what can I take off my plate? Because Frank, I think what ends up happening is people hear more means more.
Mm-hmm.
To actually do more means less.
Yeah, you
It
have to do
means
less.
you're doing less activities, but your activities that you're doing have a greater return.
Mm.
And that's what leverage is. It's focusing on the 20% of the activities that produce 80% of the results. Hey there, if you're loving the tips so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss out on more cool free tips coming your way. I'd also love to hear from you. Make sure to drop a comment below and let me know what you think, or what it is you want to see next. And we'll see you on the inside. See you. So, like, I'll give you an example. This is a perfect example of what leverage is. I was talking to somebody, Frank, just a couple of weeks ago. He was closing between 90 and $100 million over the last 3 years ago.
Mm.
The last few months, this year, he's been averaging 4 to 6 transactions a month. So 90 to $100 million to now doing 4 to 6 transactions a month. That's a massive difference. And I said, what's happened? He said, man, I tell you, I'm doing the same activity. I'm calling the same agents. I've got the same relationships. I'm using the same scripts. I don't know what's happening. Well, you
Mm.
know what we know happened
Mm.
was all of those agents that used to be qualified where he was
Right.
doing 90 to 100 million. He didn't change his activity and he lost leverage because leverage is even going after the right prospects. So, Frank,
True.
here's what happened was
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm.
still got this 100 group of agents that he's like, dude, I'm doing it all. I'm making the phone calls, I'm having the conversations. And you
Yeah.
know what they're saying? I don't
I
have
don't
the
I
business
don't got
because
it.
the
Yeah.
100 agents he had, maybe 10 of them are qualified.
Mm.
So what happened was without an awareness of losing leverage, because leverage is also in, are you going after the right people? So here's what we did.
100%.
We built
Yeah.
a plan. And the plan is go back and evaluate, are they closing 8 or more transactions, buy side transactions. And what you realize is, oh my gosh, it's not working because I lost leverage. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we re-leverage? We go after agents that are 8 or more buy side transactions. And he's already doing the right activity. He was just going after the wrong people.
Wrong people.
Very,
Mm-hmm.
very small way to leverage. Hey, and I'll say this too. I really believe this, Frank. You can make up in leverage what you lack in ability.
Mm.
And what I love what you said, even like on the freedom, like you're using a caller to set your appointments. Nobody said
Mm.
you had to set your appointment. What has to happen is you got to have appointments. You got to have
Right.
meetings. You got to have face to
Right.
face. You got to have
Right.
conversations. And even for somebody who says, well, I don't know how to do it, I'm not very good at it. The good news is you can leverage other people that are good at it. So I
Mm-hmm.
can make up and leverage what I lack in ability.
Exactly.
So when we're thinking about where we're going, number one, you got to have a vision for where we're going without the caveat of, yeah, but I don't have more time, because all you're doing is creating limiting belief. So
Mm.
remove the limiting belief. I would challenge you, double what you're currently doing and do it in the next 90 days and ask yourself, what would I do differently
Right.
to do that? And number two, what can I take off my plate? And number three, what people, what resources, what technology, what things in my routine can I do today that would actually leverage more effective results in less time? Because that's all it is, man. It's just about leveraging all of those things.
Yeah, and I would just say, man, just take the time. Take, maybe on a weekend or something, just where you can be clear of any distractions, consider those 3 points and really evaluate it and go,
Yeah.
these are really good questions to ask.
Yeah.
What can I do differently in these three areas? Right.
Hmm.
And that if you truly evaluate that and start working on those three items or those three areas, you can make a difference. You
Oh
can
yeah.
you can double. You
Oh yeah.
can, go higher without
Working more hours.
working more
Yeah.
hours because there's listen, man.
Hey,
Listen,
and without the stress, without the anxiety,
right,
the reality is when you're doing more, you actually have more resources and you're actually doing less. You're just being more effective with what
right,
the time you
right. And
have.
I was just going to say, listen, man, there's a lot of people that are doing this. I mean, there's a lot of people who are doing this, and you
It's
can
easy
do
to
it
do.
too. You can
Yeah.
do it too, right? And what you
Yeah.
just need is a little bit of guidance, right? You need a little bit of help on kind of laying some stuff out. If you want that, how can they reach out to you,
Hey,
Steve?
well,
If they're
listen, one thing I was going to say, first off,
yeah,
it's not your fault. You're listening to it and you're like, man, it feels like all roads lead to me. It feels like
right,
more means more time. It feels like more means more work. It feels like more headache and more
yeah,
anxiety. And listen, it's not your fault. This industry is intoxicated with you doing everything. And
mm-hmm,
what we have learned is there is a better way. And hey, if look, Frank, I'll tell you what we'll do. Jump into my calendar, resultswithsteve.com,
mm-hmm,
resultswithsteve.com, and I'll help you build a calendar. I'll help you work on what you can do today to leverage not more time, but do it in less time and get more results. Go to
mm-hmm.
resultswithsteve.com, resultswithsteve.com. You'll find 15-minute calendar opportunities. Pick one. We'll jump on a 15-minute call, and I'd love to walk you through how you two can double by leveraging what you've already got. You don't have to do more, it's actually less, and let's just focus on what's most effective. So, resultswithsteve.com. Hey, and Frank, I think it's something really good to be thinking about. Just be thinking about that. What would it look like if I doubled my current production? And um, what would it feel like? Man, what would that kind of financial freedom do for me and my family? You
Mm-hmm.
know what it does? It helps you, it inspires you to believe. And when you believe, it creates an anticipation. And that anticipation is what motivates you to take action. And I got to tell you, you can do it. We were just talking about somebody who was in the boot camp in June and July, and it was so crazy because Adam went from like 5, 6, 7 units a month, and just in about 6 months of going through the boot camp and through the alliances, like 17, 18, 19 units a month.
Gee whiz.
There's no rock star to it. It's just understanding, number one, it's possible, and number two, you just got to, it'll be done a different way than what you're currently doing it. Because
Right.
Frank,
What
if they
can I
get
do
current,
different?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what would need to be different? What would
What
it
would need to
look
be
like?
different?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what would my activities be? You know what, a question I think very few of us ask, Frank?
Mm.
What would I not be doing? That's an
Exactly.
even better question. I wouldn't be chasing conditions. I
Right.
wouldn't be talking to underwriters. I wouldn't be going and getting the
Right.
insurance policies and setting up title. And listen,
Yeah.
if you want to see a better way, I can help you with that. I'll be happy to help you map that out. Resultswithsteve.com. Great conversation,
Good
Frank.
stuff, man. Always a pleasure.
All
There you
right, man.
go. Catch you
See
later.
you.
See you. Bye.